We're down at the Halifax waterfront for something a little bit different. When I talk about the last Corvette, you might have a different picture in your mind. We're talking about a 1941 Corvette that was part of the Battle of the Atlantic, and this is a very special piece of history that has been preserved. It's the last of its kind, and it's here open to visitors. We're going to have a little special peek inside as we discuss HMCS Sackville on MariTIME machines. So much of the Navy's history and heritage has to do with tradition, and part of that tradition is the trooping of the colors, and that's something we're going to experience here.
Colors, Chief.
Very good. Make it so! Pipe to still.
Carry on, Chief.
Pipe to carry on. Quarterdeck dismiss.
Tell me a little bit about that ceremony.
Yeah, it's what we call morning and evening colors. Now in the Navy, we hoist colors in the morning, and in the evening, it's called sunset. Now, we hoist our colors at 8 o'clock every morning. It's a set time. For sunset, we actually lower the flag at the real sunset time.
Okay.
Now, back during the war, we never really had a flag. If you look at American ships, they fly their stars and stripes from where we fly our white ensign. But we didn't have a flag during the war. We had what was called the red ensign, but it was only an adopted flag for use on some government buildings. But all Commonwealth navies that during the war actually flew the white ensign.
I am the first lieutenant of the ship, or in modern day terms, the XO.
Now I'm looking here, Heritage Canada Foundation National Award of Honor 1985. When was this ship taken out of service?
It was, as a warship, it was taken out of commissioned service in April of 1946. In 1952, it was turned over to the Department of Research, and so she became a research vessel for most of her extended career. There was a brief time where she operated as a loop ship. And also as a trading vessel.
This was Flower Class. What is that? What exactly is that?
A Flower Class was the name given to the ships mainly by the Brits, by Winston Churchill. And what Churchill wanted to do is that he wanted to name all the ships after flowers, because he wanted to play a mind game with the Germans. Because he said, can you imagine if U-591 is sung by HMS Pansy? It's going to, you can imagine the morale effect it would have on the Germans back home. So that's why they wanted to call them flowers. Canada, on the other hand, when we built them, we named them after towns and villages, because our admiral at the time, Admiral Nellis, said, flowers don't knit mittens. And what he meant by that is that the people from those towns that the ships are named after, they had like an organization of people who knitted mittens and toques and scarves that were given to the crew of that ship of the ship that it was named after their village. But they were still called the Flower Class, because it was the first of a class of this type of ship.
And this is the last of those ships.
This is the last of the Flower Class anti-submarine warfare escort from the Second World War.
Of anywhere on the planet?
Anywhere in the world. Yeah. This is it.
My name is Reid Hall. I'm the chief electrician on Sackville.
So here we are overlooking the engine room. What do we know about this configuration and what we have in front of us right now?
Well, it is a three-stage, four-cylinder engine. And I don't know, full speed would probably do 14 knots.
When we're looking here, this sign says the prelude to action is the work of the engine room department. And that symbolizes, obviously, this is very important to obviously for this ship. How many people would have been working in this space, do you know?
There'd be 3 or 4 down here at any given time, yes. be the chief of the watch and a couple of hands with him to go around checking everything, keep oil in the little copper pots there have oil in, the oil of the engine itself. So then they'd be, like I said, they'd be doing rounds. And when the ship was mobile, they had that DC generator right there, was the ship's power.
Okay. Well, I think you're going to show us what it looks like, or at least the simulation of what it looks like when it's running.
Hopefully we're going to have it turned over and show you how it actually worked in slow motion.
All right. Well,
compared to what it would be at, because it would probably turn at about 120 RPM.
Okay.
We're going to do it about 10 or 15 RPM.
Slow simulation, but even at 125 compared to a modern engine, that's pretty slow.
Yeah.
I guess we'll make our way down safely. Okay.
Tradition, you face the ladder so you don't break your neck when you hit bottom.
Well, that's a pretty good thing. I like that tradition. We'll work hard at not breaking anything.
I also have another one.
And all told, this ship did at least, I think it was 31 or 32 convoys. And in all those convoys that this ship participated in, there were only 10 merchant ships that were actually sunk.
So we're on board right now on the harbor on
Yes.
this ship
Yep.
that is a museum, but it does leave the wharf from time to time.
Yes, it does. Normally, during the winter, the ship is berthed in HMC Dockyard. So in May, we will move the ship downtown, as close to the first weekend in May, because that's the Battle of the Atlantic. And what we do, it's the Battle of the Atlantic celebration. So what we do is we try to move it down that weekend. And while we do that, we then we'll take the ship out to Point Pleasant Shoal, where we'll do what we call a committal of ashes. For those people who want to commit the ashes of their loved ones or people who have served, not necessarily in the Navy or whatever, but they want to commit their ashes at sea from such a historical vessel. And then once that's completed, we come back into harbor, and where we are now, just behind the Maritime Museum Atlantic, and we'll stay here for the summer. And we'll stay here all summer, and then in September, where we are now, we're now going to go do another committal, the second one of 2 that we do.
Push the whole thing out of the way. Put that up and then pull the whole thing out of the way.
Say that again. Should I,
Stay right up in the gears.
in the gears?
Yeah.
Oh, down there, yeah, got it. And it's me now.
There we go. Got it. Now, hopefully we get this engine turning for you. I gotta go now.
Well, never say that you can never get something done, because these guys seem to be awfully determined to make this happen today. So thank you for that.
All for now.
That was a lot of work. What were you trying to do?
There's a dead spot in this, and we were trying to just turn that main shaft there, just maybe about a half an inch or so, to engage it, and then when we turn the hydraulic on, it would actually turn.
Would that have been a system that was on board originally, or is it something that was added later?
No, this is something that was created over the years, but normally that we turn that on, that we got, because it was operated by steam.
Right.
The hydraulics, when you first put the hydraulics in, we didn't have the problem. You go turn the hydraulic motor on, hit the switch over there, and it would turn. Then you pull the switch the other way, it turn the other way.
Right. I was looking at this control here. This is an indicator, is it not? This is from the bridge?
Repeat from the bridge, yes. They give you orders up in the wheelhouse from the bridge, or wherever the captain was, or the officer of the day. They tell you slow head, slow stern. You have a rev counter, pressure gauges there for the engine itself.
Okay.
Bend over here.
A lot to keep your eye on.
So, yeah, they tell you how many revs you want on the engine. When you go forward or aft. So, and it was all ordered from the bridge up there, the wheelhouse.
Obviously, if there's an engine but no propulsion, you need some help, and there's a lot of propulsion here, and this is going to help us get back to our winter port in just a few moments. It's a little more fun and excitement connecting the present to the past here on Maritime Machines. we're on our way to put away the ship for the winter.
That's right.
So tell us where we're going and why that's the place.
Yep. Well, as of Sunday was our last day open for visitors. Even though there's still cruise ships coming in, but it's now time to move the ship back into HMCS dockyard or HMC dockyard for the winter. Because you'll appreciate that down on the waterfront, we can't get a lot of work done, any maintenance or anything, because we got visitors throughout the ship. So what we do is we move back to the dockyard for the winter so that we can get that work done without any interruptions. And so it's a nice quiet time of the year where we can get the ship alongside, where we can touch up the rust, we can touch up, fabricate metal where we need to replace something that is deteriorating, whatever. So that's where we're going today, and we're going into what is basically it's our permanent berth. It's called November Charlie 1.
NC1.
NC1, and that's where they're going to push us ashore here in a moment, and we'll be down just backed up, just behind, just this side of that huge crane you see down there. And so we'll stay there for the summer. We won't move.
Or for the winter.
Sorry, for the winter.
Yep.
Right. The next time we move, we'll be in May.
And as far as a Corvette, what exactly is a Corvette? Is it a single type of design, or is it?
Yeah, it's a simple design. They were built as an anti-submarine warfare Corvette. It was based on a whaling trawler design. So from the deck down down to below the water, it was just a whaler hull. Above, they made it into a warship. They went for this kind of design because when the war started, we didn't have enough ships to do what we needed to do. Our dockyards were building some destroyers, so what they had to do is, as Winston Churchill called them, we had to build the cheap and nasties. Build them inexpensive and fast. So what they did is that any shipyard that was on the water somewhere, and if they could bend, weld, and shape steel, they would get they could get a contract to build one of these warships. Now, just to give you an example how fast these were built, the keel for Sackville was laid in May of 1940. May of 1941, 1 year later, the ship was launched.
When you take a look at the way the ship is configured now, as you said, it was a research vessel for a time, but it's been restored to its naval heritage. And does that include the paint scheme on the outside?
The paint scheme you see on it now, the blue and white, is they call it a camouflage, but it's not a camouflage to hide it. It's to distort the vision of a submarine that's looking at the ship from a distance.
Well, we went from dead slow and sweaty to finally getting the engine running. It's been a few days, but it's an opportunity for us now to learn a bit about the connection between the past, the present, and the future here aboard HMCS Sackville. How does this all work?
Great, so as we already know, it's steam driven. It's called a triple expansion 4-cylinder engine. So that means there's 4 cylinders, 4 pistons. You remember from your high school physics? Boyle's law, as pressure decreases, volume must increase. So the steam's used 3 times. So each progressive time the steam pressure drops, which means each progressive piston's got to be a little bigger. Okay. So the first piston is actually about this big around. The second one is about like this. And the third one would have to be about 7 feet diameter, which is not practical. Right. So there's 2 of them, about half that size. So you've got number 1, number 2, and then the 2 number 3s are on the end. Okay. And that ensures us even force across the engine. These 2 smaller pistons that you see are the steam inlet and then the steam exhaust from the cylinder.
Working like valves.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And actually, to go astern, you have to stop this engine, reverse the operation of these 2 valves, which is what piston travel is. Okay. It's said that a good crew can do it in about 30 seconds. Okay. It would probably take about a month to do it right now. And what it does, it actually reverses the operation. It's connected to a camshaft on the back of the engine, and it just reverses the operation of these 2 valves, and the engine will turn the other way. This big gray box you see on the back is a heat exchanger.
Okay.
Condenses the steam back into fresh water again, pumps it over to the boiler. The boiler boils it into steam. So it's a closed system.
And it repeats.
And it's, believe it or not, extremely efficient.
Really?
Extremely, except when it comes to power to weight ratio. It takes up a lot of room.
Gotcha.
But it's very efficient.
Well, that's a tremendous explanation, and it gives us a better picture of what we're looking at. HMCS Sackville, this was a steam-powered ship, a Corvette. This was a ship that went to sea. This is an engine that's running, but I don't see steam. What's going on here?
So, amazingly, in the early 80s, the engine and the whole propulsion plant was preserved very well. The boiler, unfortunately, the fire side, the hot side of it is toast, so that'll never work again. But what was done early on was somebody bequeathed in their will monies for a engineering project. And what they always wanted to do was to be able to roll this engine over, to possibly use it as a training aid. So that money was used, and a hydraulic motor is actually fitted to the front of the engine. The noise you hear up top is the hydraulic pump. And so this is rolling now probably at about 5 RPM. And somebody said, oh, why do you want to roll it? Well, because we can. The opportunity presented itself. We do bring engineering courses down from the school every now and again. And this is kind of neat to show them because it's some very basic engineering principles that work here.
When you say basic engineering, this is like looking inside an engine of a car in that you can see a crankshaft, you see rock, all of the pieces that would be internal to an engine, but here it is out in the open.
That's correct. One of the things that it does not have that a car engine has, and this was a bit of a problem on these ships, is a forced lubrication system that's internal. And if you see all these little brass pots all over the place, that was the job of a young fella called an oiler.
Okay.
Believe it or not, he would actually reach in and oil these bearings. Now this engine, like I said, is doing about 5 RPM. You can imagine maximum speed of 160 RPM. I'm sure a lot of these young fellas lost fingers and hands. But what else happened too is the oil would leak out, and there was a mist of oil in the space.
And I'm sure it was quite slick and
a potential fire hazard.
Right.
And of course, in the day, there was no breathing apparatus. You just stayed down here and yeah.
Now this, as you say, is designed so we can see the mechanics of how it works, but it won't provide propulsion.
No, right now it's actually disconnected at the after end of the engine. There's a coupling back there, it's just disconnected. And even if it was connected, our propeller is in the gravel in front of the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic.
So no go.
Yeah, they took that so we wouldn't sneak off in the middle of the night again.
As you say, this was a project. It's something to bring some of this history back to life, connect us from the past to the present, and for future engineering students, I'm sure this is quite exciting. It's exciting for nerds like me.
Well, even myself, and I mean, I grew up with steam turbines in the Navy and then gas turbines, which is completely different technology. But even every time I start this engine, after 33 years as an engineer in the Navy, I'm amazed at the simplicity, like I say, of design, and very robust, very robust. You can tell just by looking at it, the ship would take quite a shock aft in the stern area, and this thing would still be lined up.
Very much over-engineered, would you say that? Or really good tolerances?
You could say that.
Right.
Very, very over-engineered. That's a good way of putting it. Yep.
I noticed that aircraft, there used to be some artwork on the cowling.
Yes.
There's a similar thing on the gun on this vessel, this duck.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about where that came from.
Well, the story behind that is during the war, we had what it was called gun shield art. And on every Canadian naval vessel during the war, the gunners on board, they were very proud of their trade and what they wanted to do. So what they did is that they painted something that was unique to the ship. We had 2 gun shield art decals on board. The first one was the one that looks like a potato bag with a bunch of submarines in it and a broom. And basically, and it's a play on the name word, like Sackville.
Okay.
So that was sack full of subs.
Of U-boats.
Of U-boats,
Right,
yes.
okay.
So that was that one. So that's the one we started with. Somewhere around 1943, they moved it and they changed it to Donald Duck. I have no idea how that change ever came to be.
Right. So how often are you running this? How often are you starting this to keep it
We
moving?
try to do it once a week. The problem this time of year is the hydraulic fluid is very cold, so it's very thick. And that's why we had a problem getting it going in the last few days.
Right.
I had 4 young fellas down here this morning, and between the 5 of us, we actually were turning this thing by hand.
Right.
And it's a very slow process, but we were able to finally break the engine away, yeah.
Now you mentioned you're retired Navy.
Yes.
There are a number of young men on deck
Yes.
in uniform.
Yes.
So this is a museum, in effect.
It is.
It's a floating museum. So why are there active service members on board? Tell me the connection there.
Well, we're also a private floating museum. However, we exist, and we are Canada's Naval Memorial.
Right.
Part of the training, every sailor who goes on board ship, prior to joining their first ship, they actually, I get them for a half day.
Okay.
Up at the school, we do a tour of the museum on the base, and then we come down here and do a tour of Sackville. So Sackville is slowly becoming more important within Navy culture than I think it was in the past. So these guys that you see here today, they're here purely as line handlers. We do get people on board sometime during the summer. They're usually people that are awaiting a course,
Right.
or they're physically unable to sail on board an operational ship, or they're about to release and they're looking for somewhere to but they're a really good bunch. They come down here and they don't want to leave.
Well,
So we're a pretty popular place to work.
Yeah, see, they're going to put us right along that wall, right along there. Perpendicular to the MCDV that you see. She's tied up there.
Okay.
We're gonna go this way.
Okay. And
and that-
stern, which way is it going to turn?
Okay, we're gonna go in. The bow will be facing that way.
Okay.
Stern will be that way.
So we can still get off.
Oh yes, yes. Well, we won't use this one.
No.
We actually have another one that is more conducive for the ship while alongside in the dockyard.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And this is a secure naval site right here.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
this is the HMC dockyard. It's a military establishment. It has its own security policies and
It's a nice, safe space to put in for winter.
exactly.
So this is all but a memory. We're almost ready for the end of this season for HMCS Sackville as a working museum. Wintertime, they'll get to, put some work into getting her ship shape for next season. It's been a lot of fun here with MariTIME Machines, and my exit is just about ready for us. So thanks again.